You may have heard or read that cars are a major wealth killer in the US, but today I'm going to show you why, with some help from Tom and Jerry. This video might end up being worth almost $500,000 to you, so let's get straight into it. We're going to compare two scenarios over a 40-year time frame and see what car buying habits can mean for you in the long term. Scenario 1 is Tom. He buys a new car every 5 years and he uses 5-year car loans to pay for it. Scenario 2 is Jerry. Jerry buys a new car every 10 years, still using a 5-year car loan. So, Tom is always making car payments and Jerry alternates between 5 years of making car payments and 5 years of being free of car payments. Because we're looking at a 40-year time period, let's make it easier for ourselves to compare the scenarios by making some assumptions. To start off, all new cars will always cost $40,000 and their value will decrease over time. After 5 years, they'll be worth $15,000 and after 10 years, they'll be worth $5,000. Next, all car loans will have an 8% interest rate, and finally, there won't be any fees or taxes due when initially purchasing a car. So, how do Tom and Jerry fare over the 40-year period? Let's start by looking at Tom. At the start of year 1, Tom goes and buys his first car. He takes out a $40,000 loan at 8% interest for 5 years. So over the next 5 years, he satisfies that loan, paying a total of around $48,000, as you can see from this calculator. Now, at the end of year 5, he sells that car for what it's worth, which at that point is $15,000, and then at the start of year 6, he takes that $15,000, applies it as a down payment and buys his next car. So the next car costs $40,000, but because of his $15,000 down payment, he only has to take out a loan for $25,000, again at 8% interest for 5 years. This time, he pays around $30,000 in total to satisfy that loan over the next 5 years, and once again, he sells his car at the end of year 10, takes the $15,000 that he gets from that and puts it as a down payment on a new car at the start of year 11. So again, he has to take out a $25,000 loan at 8% interest for 5 years, which is the same scenario as the last time he bought a car. So we know that he's going to pay around $30,000 over the next 5 years to satisfy that loan. He repeats this process every 5 years until the end of the 40-year period. So how much did Tom pay over the 40-year period for his 8 cars? Well, the first car cost him around $48,000 and every successive car after that cost him around $30,000. In total, he pays around $261,000 for all of his cars. Now let's figure out the numbers for Jerry. And if you're somebody who watched Tom and Jerry cartoons back in the day, you probably know that he's got a trick up his sleeve. As a reminder, Jerry buys a new car every 10 years, so in the 40-year time span, he buys a total of 4 cars. Each time he buys a car, he also gets a 5-year, 8% interest loan. In year 1, Jerry goes to buy his first car, so he needs to get a $40,000 loan at 8% interest for 5 years. That's why we know that he's going to end up paying over the next 5 years the same amount as Tom did for his first car, and that is around $48,000. So at the end of year 5, he's paid off his car, and then he keeps it for 5 more years, and so between years 6 and 10, he has no car payments. Then at the end of year 10, he sells his car for its value of $5,000. Just like Tom, he takes that and applies it as a down payment to his next car, which he buys at the beginning of year 11. So he needs to take out a loan of $35,000, and then it takes him 5 years to pay that off. He pays a total of around $42,000. And then it's a rinse and repeat because he goes, sells his car for $5,000 at the end of year 20, applies that as a down payment to the car that he buys next, and the loan amount is the same, so all the rest of the math is basically a repeat of what we've already seen. So the question is, how much does Jerry pay for his cars over the 40 years? His first car cost the same as Tom's, around $48,000, and his next 3 cars cost around $42,000 each. In total, he pays roughly $176,000 for his 4 cars. How does that compare to Tom? Well, we know that Tom spent around $261,000 on his cars. Therefore, he ended up shelling out about $85,000 more than Jerry because he decided to switch cars twice as often. In fact, if you take that amount and spread it out evenly over 40 years, that's $177 a month that could go to anything from car insurance to groceries or whatever else $177 a month can buy you. That's already a pretty decent takeaway. But let's make this even more interesting. What if Jerry were to invest that money? Let's think about this. There are a total of 20 years where Jerry is not making car payments. If he took that $85,000 amount and spread it out over those 20 years, that would be around $355 a month. Let's just call it $355 even. What could happen to Jerry's investments? At this point, we need one more assumption. Let's say that Jerry's investments grow at a constant rate of 8% every year. Let's kick things off with that first investment window. At the beginning of year 6, after he finishes paying off his first car, Jerry can start investing $355 a month. If we use our investment calculator, we can see that by the end of year 10, Jerry's investments would grow to around $26,000. Then some magic happens because he leaves that alone and lets it grow until year 40. Over that time, his $26,000 of investments grows to around $260,000. Wow! Jerry is already $250,000 better off than Tom by year 40. But let's keep going. The next period where he doesn't have car payments is between the start of year 16 and the end of year 20. So he invests during that time, and we already know from our first calculation that he'd end up with around $26,000 in investments at the end of year 20. This time, when he lets that sit and grow for 20 years, it's going to grow to around $120,000 by the end of year 40. The third window is between years 26 and 30, and those investments would grow to around $56,000 by year 40. And the last window is between years 36 and 40, and the calculations are different here because there is no time after the end of the window for the money to sit and grow. So we just take the amount that the investments would be worth after 5 years of investing, which is our roughly $26,000 amount. So what is Jerry's decision to take all of the money that he's not putting towards car payments and invest it instead get him? Well, close to $500,000 in investments by the end of the 40th year, around $463,000. And that is huge. The thing is, if you buy the right type of car and you take care of it, there's no reason why it shouldn't be performing well even after 10 years. So the choice is pretty clear for me, but that's only according to my perspective. I'm a huge proponent of using your money to build happiness. So if trading cars often and driving a newer car on average really is going to make you happy, then go for it. I truly support that. But if not, then these numbers give you some food for thought. And I don't know about you, but when I see some solid concrete numbers, they really help a concept solidify in my mind. What I want you to take away from this video is not the numbers, because the numbers were based on very simplified assumptions and scenarios, so they're not extremely accurate. But they are accurate enough to point out the fact that there is an extremely big opportunity cost associated with buying new cars frequently, especially if you're constantly making car payments. The reason that cars are a major wealth killer in the US is not because of how much they cost. It's because of the opportunity cost of the money that you're putting towards them. In other words, all the other things that money could have done instead to make your life better. Thanks for being here. Let me know what you think, and be sure to subscribe for calm and thoughtful personal finance content. Take care.